What's up, everybody? I'm Nick Murphy. I'm one half of the Brothers Murph, and this is 3D Gaming. 3D Gaming is where we go through with our Ender 3 3D printer here, and we 3D print stuff for games. Now, this isn't going to be like one of our other episodes where we're actually printing something for a game. We've been trying to do a mix of episodes where we're upgrading gaming stuff, and then the other half of the mix is us talking about printing, giving some suggestions, basically going through the whole learning process kind of on video and along with you, because we are mega new to 3D printing, and it is a very frustrating and confusing hobby if you don't know much about this kind of stuff, and we don't, and we've had to learn some lessons along the way, and so we're always trying to share those with you, and that is what this one is going to be. It's us kind of like changing some things about our printer, some stuff that we've learned, that kind of stuff. So we're going to go through a couple different things in this video. One you might have noticed is that we changed out our bed, so we're going to talk about that, and then one of the main things is that we essentially broke our printer. Well, our printer broke. We didn't personally like break it. But, and then we had to kind of go through a harrowing time of trying to fix it. And we did. It works again, and she's trucking along great. But so that's what we're going to go over in this episode. So let's go ahead and start. And because it's right here, we're going to go ahead and start with our new bed. So we took this old bed. This is the one that came with the Ender 3 bed. Overall, we liked it. It's very sticky. Things stick to it very well. The problem is it's pretty warped. It's kind of hard to tell just from looking at it, but we knew that it was warped from when we were trying to level our bed, make sure our bed is nice and level in retrospect to the Z-axis and the nozzle, that it definitely wasn't level. It was just warped. It was higher in the corners than it was in the center there. And so we decided to change it out. Now, I will say we weren't having that many problems with this. We were working around it. It wasn't that big a deal. But nonetheless, we found out that we could change it to a mirror bed for much cheaper. Look, you can see yourself. Where's the camera? There's a camera. You can see yourself. And there's a light up there, too. So we changed it out for a mirror bed. And now I did record this. This actually happened a couple of weeks ago, but we did record it. And so we're going to go into how to cut the mirror beds and then a little bit about how to install them right now. We want to upgrade our bed to a mirror bed. It's hard to see here, but this is a mirror. It's pointing up. You can see me in here. Hi. So this is a little mirror, and we are going to upgrade our bed to a mirror bed because our bed is a little bit warped, and we've heard this is a very good way to do it, so we're going to do that. So all we need for this is we're going to need some mirrors. We got these Glacial Bay mirrors from Home Depot that was $10 for 6 12 by 12 mirrors. We're going to need a big straight edge, some gloves, a Sharpie, and then something kind of softish to do it on. I have some foam core. You could use like a towel or anything like that. And yeah, we're going to do this. I've done this once already, and I already have one, but I want to make another one for the video. We have some, you know, some failed ones over there. But we are going to cut them with a glass cutter, which is this little thing right here. If you're ever going to do something like this, use a tool that's meant for it, because this is about $2. So make sure to get the correct tools. So let's go ahead and cut this up. Hello. Okay, so we have our mirror here. The first thing we have to do is measure out how big we need our mirror. Our bed for our Ender 3 is 23.5 centimeters. So we're going to go ahead and mark that out, just like that, on one side. And then you are going to take your straight edge, and then this is going to score the glass. It's not actually going to cut the glass. It's just going to score it, and then you're going to break it along that score line. So make it good like this, and then you're going to hold it down very tight. And you're going to push decently hard. You're going to hear like a scoring sound, which is not a great sound, I'm not going to lie. It's just the worst. But nonetheless, that is the sound it's supposed to make. And then I don't know if you can see it here, but there is, hi Nick, hi, hello. There is a score line right here. Hello, camera, hello. And so we have a score line there, and then what we're going to do is put on some gloves. Please make sure to put on gloves because, you know, safety. And I'm doing this just on top of our Game Topper. A great way to upgrade your 3D printing experience is by upgrading your Game Topper experience with GameTopperLLC.com. Okay, so then you want to put the mirror onto a hard surface. I'm using just the island in our kitchen because it's granite, so it's very flat and very hard. And then you're going to line up your score line just outside of an edge of a hard surface, and then with a very confident motion, you're going to snap it off. And it should snap off right along that score line, and then it creates an edge that isn't really sharp. So it's not any sharper or duller than any of the other edges, and so you are good to go. So I'm going to cut off the other side because it's still a little too long, and then we're good to go. Okay, so I went and clipped on the mirror bed here. It looks good. I actually really like the way it looks. I think it looks mega cool. So it is on here now. Now, the main problem with this mirror bed that we have to deal with right now is that our old bed, this Ender 3 bed, which we are going to keep just in case, is much thinner than this bed here. And so now the bed is too high. So what we're going to have to do is take the tools we got when we built the Ender 3, and we are going to have to, let me unplug this real quick. There we go. And we are going to have to change this Z-stop down here. So we have to change this Z-stop right here. The Z-axis is the one that goes up and down like this. And this little stop right here is what keeps it from going down farther. So we need to move this up because we can see the nozzle, which is right here, is far too low. As you can see, the mirror bed is this big old bed right here, and the old bed was much thinner. So this nozzle was totally fine, but now it's way too low. And so this Z-stop right here is what stops it from going even lower. The problem is if we keep the Z-stop right here, it's going to try and home down to this point, which means it's most likely going to break and or just straight up shatter our bed. So what we're going to have to do is move the nozzle up so that it is just a little bit above our mirror bed there, and then we can level the bed from there. So we're going to have to move this thing up a little bit. All right, so I changed the Z-stop, and hopefully it should not, I'm going to auto-home it, and hopefully it won't shatter our bed. It should work, I think. So here's the hoping. Okay, I think that's okay. That looks like it. All right, cool, awesome. Alrighty, so it's the first test on the mirror. We're gonna see how it goes. I want to see if it adheres to this. To adjust the bed. Oh, that's not staying at all. Okay. Sounds like the kind of general installation of our mirror bed. These beds are easy to install because they are held on by these clips right here. And this is so that you can take your bed on and off for if you want to like scrape off a project. So in terms of installing it onto the bed itself, literally you just put it on there, clip it on, and you're good to go. Now you can see now it's covered in blue painter's tape. And that is because we were having a lot of problems getting things to adhere to our mirror bed, even with the bed heated up. You can see in the video there, it was having a hard time sticking. And we have some failures right here. This is from us trying to print out 3D paddocks, which is our last episode for Dinosaur Island. And we were having just a heck of a hard time getting anything to adhere to it. It just wouldn't stick. Generally, when you want the nozzle printing, you want it to be very close to the bed, but you don't want it like actually like touching the bed. That's too close. But for us to get anything to stick on that bed, we would literally have to have it basically touching the bed. It had to be so close and really just squish the print plastic on there for it to stay. And that's not really how it's supposed to be. Now you can use things like Aquanet or glue sticks to help things stick to it, but we really just didn't want to have to constantly clean up the bed like that. We don't want to have to constantly take it off and like scrub all the old stuff off of it. But the blue painter's tape was suggested to us by Arcade Ed, which was a follower who helped us fix our printer, which we'll get to in a second. And this works really well. You just put painter's tape on there. You can still heat the bed, no problem, and it definitely helps. Alrighty, so now we're going to get into probably why you're here because of the kind of clickbaity title. So yeah, we had kind of a big scare where our printer kind of broke down and we had no idea what was going on, no idea what to do, and a wonderful follower named Arcade Ed was very patient with us and really just offered to help us try and figure out what was wrong and just walked us through the whole thing. So we're going to kind of talk about what went wrong, what we thought was the problem, and then it turns out what was the problem. Alrighty, real quick, one thing we want to get into now that we're talking about maintenance and kind of upgrades is that you can see this right here. This spot right here holds the motherboard, the main board down there. The problem is the fan for the main board is in a really dumb spot. They had it right here on the top facing upwards. So if you have like extra filament that comes out, it can very easily fall into here and get in the whole spot where your main board is. And you don't want that. So one thing that was suggested to us on the videos that we watch is printing out one of these. This is a little fan that perfectly goes into this spot right here, covers it up, keeps the fan working, but keeps it so stuff cannot get in here. And it's super easy, works super well, super easy to print, super easy to install. Overall great. We'll put a link for this down in the description below so that you can see this /print out if you have an Ender 3, because this is really necessary because you really don't want spare stuff getting down into your main board. So basically what happened with our printer is this actually happened twice. And one time we thought we had fixed it and it turns out we actually had the wrong thing. But basically what happened is that we turned on our printer. It's not plugged in right now, so it won't actually turn on. We turned on our printer and our LED screen here wouldn't come on. It just wouldn't come on at all. And because the LED screen was on, we couldn't control anything. We couldn't get anything else to work. We knew there was power to the machine because the main power supply, which is this big silver box back here, was on. The fan was going, so we knew there was power to the machine, but our LED screen wouldn't come on. So we thought that that somehow it had fried out or something was an issue. But whenever we would manually move the Y-axis or the X-axis right here on our own, if we moved them fast enough, the LED stream would flicker on. So we were like, okay, that's weird that it's flickering on. And so I didn't know what was going on. I had absolutely no clue. I tried Googling it. I tried looking stuff up, like broken LED screen, LED screen flickering. Nothing was coming up. So I put it to Facebook. There's a good group that's specifically for the Ender 3 on Facebook, kind of a support group where people ask questions, people post cool stuff they're doing with their Ender 3s. It's a really great group with like 25,000 people. If you have an Ender 3, go join that group. It's a really great source of information. So I posted on there, posted a little video of like, hey, when I move this back and forth, my screen flickers, but nothing else will happen. What's going on? And basically, everyone was like, don't do that, basically yelling at me. And I will say about that group, like 80% of the comments weren't helpful at all. They were basically people just being like, don't do that, that's dumb. And that was it. And I'm like, look, I'm aware that what happened here is probably my fault and it was probably stupid, but like, I'm here asking for help. Please help me out. I'm reaching out for help. I'm trying to learn. Don't be an ass about it. And a lot of people were asses about it. But nonetheless, there were people who were very helpful. And basically what they said is that everything here is done on motors. And so when you manually move this back and forth or move this back and forth, if you move it fast enough, it essentially generates electricity, which then makes this flicker on and off. And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. The motors, if you manually power them, will still generate electricity as if they were electronically powered by the power supply. That makes sense, but everyone was like, don't do that because that's a really easy way to fry out your motherboard or at least fry out one of your motors over here. Because essentially what you're doing is sending a giant jolt of electricity to the motherboard and you can blow it out really easily. So everyone's like, well, what you probably did is you probably fried your motherboard, because if you were moving it like that, which I was never moving it that quickly, but nonetheless, they're like, if you manually move it like that, you can really easily fry your motherboard. That's probably what you did. You're going to have to get a new one. Too bad, but ultimately they're not that expensive, so it's not a huge deal. But I was super bummed. So I was messing around with it, and I was messing around with the motherboard in here, and essentially unplugging and replugging stuff in and just trying to make sure all the connections were good. And then voila, boom, it turned back on. And it was great. And I was like, yay, that's awesome. I fixed it when I didn't really do anything. And I was like, cool, it works again. I guess my motherboard wasn't fried. There was just a bad connection in here and I probably just connected it back in well enough. And so, yay, I fixed it. I'm a technical genius. No, I didn't. Nothing was different. But nonetheless, at the time, I thought we had fixed it. Everything was working fine. It worked for a few more weeks before it broke again. And now we have the information where, hey, if you're moving these, that's fine. You can move them manually, but move them very slowly because you don't want to fry out your motherboard or fry out your steppers. And the steppers are the motors here that run the different axes. Axes, I feel like. And I do want to point that out because we watched hours and hours of videos of the Ender 3 and like 3D printers in general and like how to build your Ender 3. These are some things to watch out on your Ender 3. And not one of them ever mentioned that you should not move your bed or any of these things manually very fast because you can blow it out. Now that I know what I'm looking for, I found some videos talking about it, but it wasn't in any of the general videos. So this is me telling you, hey, don't move your beds back and forth very quickly or your axis back and forth very quickly because you can fry out your motherboard or fry out your steppers. So don't be like us and don't do that. But ultimately, that's not what we did, which was great. Because we fixed it that one time. Yay, we're geniuses. But too bad, a couple weeks later, exact same thing happened again. We had the printer turned on, we were heating it up, getting ready to print some stuff for our new episode with the Dinosaur Island paddocks, and then lo and behold, boom, the whole thing turned off, the LED screen shut out again, it was done. But the power supply back here was still on, so we were in the exact same position we were last time. So I was like, okay, it must have been a connection issue down in the motherboard. I'm going to replug in all that stuff, it'll be fine. Turns out that didn't work this time. So here we were stuck, not really knowing what to do. Trying to, again, to Google what was going on. But if you don't really know what you're looking for, it's very, very hard to Google stuff because you're kind of just like, LED screen doesn't work. Why? And without more information, you kind of just don't really know what you're doing. And that's what comes down to like 3D printing in general, which is tough because like Mike and I don't have really any electronic experience. We like to work with our hands, but never really with electronics. We just never really did any of this kind of stuff and don't know anything about it. To be completely honest, we're 100% ignorant. And that's a problem when you're trying to learn a new technology. And it's not so much that people aren't willing to help. It's just that you don't even know what to look for or what to ask for help in. Because we have watched a ton of videos on like safety and all this different stuff, trying to learn as much as possible. But in the end, it's like reading a book on how to do an appendectomy and then having to do an appendectomy. You can read as much as you want and really understand as much as you can, but really until you get into it, you just don't really know what you're doing. And that's what happened to us when our printer broke down again. We were trying to look it up, had no idea. The only idea we had is that we had fried out our motherboard or fried out our motor steppers. So we were talking to Roy Candidate online, and there's this wonderful gentleman named Arcade Ed who commented on the thread that we were talking about on Twitter where we had mentioned that we broke our printer, and he said, hey, go ahead and email me. Let's see if we can fix it together. And so I did that. And I want to give a huge, huge shout out to Arcade Ed for being so patient with me and really spending like the better part of a whole Monday with me over Google Hangouts chat, just talking me through stuff. So, good thing is, we didn't fry our stuff out. Turns out that wasn't a problem. So the first thing we did was check the power. We had borrowed this voltage meter from our friends Hannah and Jimmy, and the first thing we had to do is check to make sure that power was getting to our motherboard, because that's what Arcade Ed seemed like he said. Seems like it was the problem, because we knew our power supply was on because our fan on our big power supply here was on. And so we checked the voltage over here in our main board, and it turns out there was no reading over there. And then we checked the voltage meter on our power supply. We took it off, opened it up, but the power was coming here. So with some deducing from Arcade Ed, we figured out that there wasn't power getting from our power supply to our motherboard. So we had to figure out why. It turns out there was a connection issue. And the connection issue is this wire down here. This wire is the one that goes from our power supply over here to our main board like this. So when we were futzing around with it and messing around with it, this black wire here popped out of it. And Arcade Ed said, yep, that's exactly what I thought was the problem. I thought there might be a loose wire somewhere that you didn't know about that was causing all these issues. Turns out we didn't know about it. And the more we thought about it, we were like, you know what? Every single time this thing shut down like that was after we had moved it. We had either adjusted it on the table or moved it from room to room. That is when we had those connection issues and our LED screen wouldn't work. So what the problem was is that this wire down here was popping out of its little circuit spot. We're like, great, that's easy to fix. The problem is, you're going to have to solder it back into place. Now, Mike has soldered stuff I had never have before, but the problem is Mike was at work. So Nicky Boy had to go get a soldering iron from Home Depot and then learn how to use one through Google Hangouts and then solder it back into place, and did probably just the worst soldering job in the history of the world. But nonetheless, we got this wire back in there connected. We connected it back together, let it cool down, and then went, okay, let's try it, turned it on. Boom, worked again, no problem. So in this case, it was a pretty easy fix, and it was just a connection issue. That was causing all of our problems with our printer. And that just kind of comes down to the fact that, like, we got a budget printer, and when you get a budget printer, you're getting a budget printer. It works great, but you're gonna sometimes have these kinds of issues. We're gonna have connection issues, you're gonna have like cheap stuff on it. That's just kind of how it goes. So we ended up fixing our printer, and we're very, very happy, and we have printed a whole grip of paddocks that no longer are all jumbled and messed up. And it's worked like a champ ever since with absolutely no problem. So I want to say thank you to Arcade Ed for talking us through this and getting us through this whole thing. because it was a harrowing time where we thought we had fried a whole bunch of stuff and we're like ready to buy a new motherboard and new motor steppers and everything like that. And it turns out we didn't need to do any of that because we would have bought all that stuff and nothing would have been different. And so again, ask for help, people. There are great people out there who are willing to help you with this kind of stuff, especially if you're like us where you just have absolutely no idea what you're doing. Alrighty, so that is going to be it for this episode of 3D Gaming. Again, this was just kind of like a little maintenance episode where we talked about a couple of the upgrades that we've done, like our new bed and our new little fan cover thing right here. And then just talking about, you know, a little PSA of like, don't move your bed and all these different axes really, really fast because you can blow stuff out. And just in general, like, again, like as we go through this learning process, we're trying to share that learning stuff with you. Basically being like, look, we're huge dum-dums with this. And, you know, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to show those mistakes to you. One, so you can laugh at us, and two, so that maybe you can learn if you also don't know anything just like us. So thank you so much for being here. Please make sure to like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And please let us know down in the comments what you think about 3D printing, if you're thinking about getting one, if you have any questions. We may be able to answer some. Other people will probably be able to answer more. And then what you want us to 3D print next. So thank you again. Have a great time. Go out there, print your little hearts out, and we'll see you later.